Hi, this is Andrew Nemec of the Oregonian Oregon Live. I'm again joined by Jordan Johnson, high school football guru in the state of Oregon. Today is the day we are talking all prospect, all state team. This isn't your typical all state team. Every player at every position is essentially the top prospect. So the goal would be for this team 4 years from now to be the best college football team we can assemble with Oregon high school football talent. It's something we've had hours of conversation about, prospect rankings, who's the top player at each position. We're finally here, fired up. Jordan, how long have you been doing these lists and trying to come up with essentially a team we can be proud of?
Yeah, I mean, a long time since I was a kid, I guess. But we're referencing this. I mean, we've been talking about this for a little while, and I think a lot of deserving kids. It kind of shows how talented the state is as a whole. I mean, night and day from a decade ago with regards to how many D1 kids there are, and well deserved for these athletes.
Can't emphasize enough that, again, it is not based entirely on production from this year. It's an all prospect list, so it's guys who are going to be the most heavily recruited. There are some sophomores on this list who didn't really get an opportunity until midseason this year and then exploded. It's a list of the best prospects. So that being said, let's jump right in. Offense first, the glamour position, quarterback. Oregon seems to always have good quarterbacks, dating back a very long way, but even recently with Kellen Clemens and Derek Anderson, and then last year was a terrible year for prospects. There was only 4 or 5 guys, but you look at Eric Dungy, he was ranked second or third depending on how you ranked him, and some people had him first, and he's tearing it up at Syracuse. And I think he's their starter. I mean, he's been electric. This year's group of quarterbacks, very good. I don't know if they have Dungy's ceiling. I think Dungy is such a great athlete, such a strong arm. I think he has an NFL ceiling. But that being said, I think a more polished group in the classes of 2016 and 17.
Dungy, 16 TDs, 3 picks on the year, 11 passing, 5 rushing. I think he's hitting on 6% of his passes. They played at Florida State last week. So that's a really interesting one because he was a kid that was, once again, overlooked like a lot of the other athletes in the Northwest. And we see what he's doing as a true freshman on a national stage, playing a tough schedule. So that's what makes it so interesting with some of these guys because they're going to get a chance to do their thing as well at some big-time universities.
I think there are 4 guys that need to be considered for an All-State, and we were a little loose with the numbers. If there were 2 very clear-cut elite guys, we'd put 2 quarterbacks in. If there are 5 stud linebackers, like in the next couple of years, we put 5 linebackers in. So we were a little loose with the numbers. But there are 4 guys that are really the candidates, and it's Justin Herbert, the Oregon commit out of Sheldon, Connor Neville, Wilsonville, got offers from Boise State, Washington State, visiting Oregon State this weekend, Sam Neuer from Beaverton, committed to Colorado and really turned himself into a Pac-12 player. And Tim Tawa, who's committed to Stanford for baseball, Gatorade Player of the Year as a sophomore, electric, probably has the best numbers, but may not be the best prospect. How do you see that shaking out in terms of your top? Let's take 2 because there are 2 really good ones.
Well, you talk about Herbert, 6'6", 220. We've spoken on him numerous times over the last few weeks. Committed to Oregon. He'll probably be at least a 2-year starter for the Ducks, and can't say enough good things about Justin. Just a phenomenal overall athlete. Sam Neuer's a kid that I personally really, really like. Last year in Vegas, he had 20 TDs, 3 picks, made it to the national semifinals among 120 teams. So he's a kid that is impressed on multiple levels, both this and last spring. Connor Neville, 30 TDs, 5 picks, 68.2% completion percentage through 7 games this year. And I think he's just getting started. I think he's going to tear it up in the playoffs with that receiving core they have. 6'4", 6'4", 6'3". I mean, it looks really, really good. He picks and chooses who he wants to throw to. And Timmy Tawa, I think that kid, we talked about it the other day, you put a hole in the wall, tell him to throw the ball through it, he'll typically hit it. I mean, he's just really, really talented. And he's not prototypical size, this and that, but right now, if they make a 4 or 5 game run in the playoffs, he could realistically break the all-time state record for touchdown passes in a season. So,
if I'm taking 2, if you're giving me 2 in this state for my college football team, I want Justin Herbert and Connor Neville. And it's no disrespect to Sam, who I think is a leader and might be the best leader out of the group. And I know Justin's a great quiet leader, but Sam's that vocal, really energetic guy who will drag a broken leg to win for his team. So no disrespect to him. And then obviously Tim Tawa, the best athlete of the group. I mean, that kid, he's a freak athlete. But I worry about the size a little bit. I worry about him seeing over the line. We see some of that with Vernon Adams. As good as he is, and Tim Towah has that kind of style in some ways. He's a better pocket passer. But as good as he is, he has a hard time seeing over a big line. And if he were at Stanford, he'd have a 6'7", 6'6" line. So I would worry about that a little bit. So I'm gonna take Justin Herbert and Connor Neville. But I know you're not going to be happy about Sam Neuer being honorable mention.
No, I'm biased towards Sam. I'll definitely admit that, and just a phenomenal kid. I would agree with regards to this is a collegiate list. Who's going to do the most at the collegiate level? And Justin Herbert and Connor both have a high projection.
Running back, I tried like heck to come up with a list of running backs that were prospects, and I know there are some good guys to watch. But in terms of surefire, gonna be a pretty good college back, there may not be any. I think Talley at Jesuit is first of all, there's no question he's the guy. He's the all-state, all-prospect running back because he is a Mountain West, maybe Pac-12 level player. How long has it been since you've seen this lack of talent, Talley aside, at this position across the state? I mean, it seems like maybe we've just been lucky with a nice run of Cameron Scarlett, Thomas Tyner, but it seems like Oregon always has a pretty good backer too. And right now it seems like we got Talley and then a lot of wait and see.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough position. You have some super talented running backs throughout the region and nationally. I mean you can go at any of these other sites and look at these 3, 4, 5-star kids. That said, Jason has grown over the offseason. He's probably 6'3", 215. You know, he's gonna end up with 35, 40 touchdowns on the year. And you could foreseeably, if he doesn't play running back, have him as an outside backer. He could be doing a host of different things. So he's recruitable for a lot of different reasons with that size. I agree with you on this one. There's some younger guys that have the potential to be good. It's a wait and see type thing. We talked about Amir McGee out of Franklin, and there's a few other kids that are talented athletes. But for the most part, I agree with you on just if we're talking mid-major Pac-12 kids, there isn't a plethora, if you will, of those type of running backs.
And this is a really easy spot, potentially, to slide a guy like Ronnie Rustin, who plays linebacker, plays safety, plays running back, but he doesn't project as a running back at the next level, and this is supposed to be based on 4 years from now, so you slot him in at running back, and he's not a running back 4 years from now. So there are some situations there where you could say, well, maybe Elijah Molden, but Elijah Molden, again, kind of projects more at corner. So there are some talented guys. They just simply project at the next level at other positions.
There's Derek Jackson, a kid out of Century that's had a really big year. He's a nice receiving back. He'll be a first-team All-Metro kid. That's another guy that's coming back next year. He's a 2017. Christian Swain over at Roosevelt has a kid, Lepeti Asai's brother. He's only a freshman, Panay Asai. Hopefully I'm not brutalizing that name too much, but 6 foot, $190 freshman. They kept him at the freshman level, but Coach Swain says it's the surest thing he's ever had to a legit Pac-12 talent. So that's a freshman that's very notable.
And he could easily be honorable mention. He's the one guy that you kind of go, gosh, do we leave him off? Do we put him on? Because he's, when a coach comes out that knows what he's talking about and says that about a kid, there's real potential there. But again, being a freshman, having only played at the freshman level, it's really hard to say, let's throw him on an all-state list. So he waits. But that's the kind of list this is. It's going to be a kind of list where potentially a freshman on a freshman team could make it onto this list for all-state because it's a prospect list. It's a projection list, not a surefire who's the best now. Wide receiver, gosh, it's a fun year for wide receivers. There's some really talented kids in this state at the receiver position. Trevon Bradford, I think, headlines this list. He's the most polished, finished product right now. No disrespect to Chase Cota, who does all the little things right. Chase Cota's only a sophomore. He's the number 3 sophomore in the nation. He makes this list out of South Medford. And then Keenan Lowe, former Oregon Duck receiver, his little brother, Trey Lowe, a sophomore out of Jesuit, exactly the kind of guy we're talking about with a list like this. Didn't get as many opportunities early in the year, finally did, and exploded. Trey Lowe, I think, is going to end up being a Pac-12 player. Those 3 are ridiculously talented, and I think they all have, they certainly have Pac-12 ceilings. Chase Cota's got an offer from Oregon State. Trevon Bradford's committed to Oregon State. And then you've got Samori Torrey, who any other year probably makes this list without any doubt. 1,200 yards, 68 catches, 15 touchdowns. And I think he's going to end up being honorable mention because he's not a surefire Pac-12 guy, and the three guys above him I think are.
So, real quickly, David Morris, we have him on the defensive side of the ball.
We do.
But as a running back, I'm a huge David Morris fan. I just have to throw that out there because we skipped by the running backs.
Yeah, I did.
You know, so with running backs, he definitely needs to be mentioned because he could play there. He could be your outside back or he could be your strong safety.
Sure.
He could be wherever. He's going to have a bunch of Division I offers. I mean, big-time offers too. So David Morris needs to be mentioned as a big-time kid. Separate with the wide receivers, I agree with you on Trevon. Chase Cota is ridiculous by the time he's done. You would think he's going to end up at Oregon, but who knows? And Trey, just a really good overall athlete, and for him to be doing what he's doing as a sophomore, I mean, Keenan, just a phenomenal dude, and it speaks volumes to the family, the genes, you know, how athletic they are. Samori is gone off all year long. His teammate Mason Elliott's the only junior in the state of Oregon with a Division I offer right now, so he definitely needs to be in the mix. Those guys have comparable receptions and yards on the year. And then my guy, Jordan Happel. I'm a big Happel guy. Happel is one of, in my opinion, the top dual threat kids in the state of Oregon. He's the conference player of the on defense as a junior, as a free safety. He's the guy that goes up and gets the ball at the highest point and gets it 98% of the time over anyone, regardless if it's a 6'6" wideout or whatever. The kid is super legit. So I want to make sure Happel's a guy I think these guys are missing a little bit on. He's got a couple offers with Eastern Washington and Montana State, but he's not a Big Sky guy. He's a mid-major potential Pac-12 guy. I mean,
in your opinion?
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So Jordan Happel's a guy I really like.
I love Happel, and we just talked about three prospects to start the list: Bradford, Cota, Lowe, and they've all been productive. But then you go into like the super productive group, and Happel talking about going up and getting the ball. 3 picks last week. Samori Tori last week, 5 touchdowns receiving. Really talented kids. And again, both those guys will end up being on a first-team All-State list. I think just the All-State overall list. And Happel's great. And I do think Happel gets slept on. I do think Happel is a kid who does it the right way and does it fairly quietly because he's so efficient. And people don't always see how talented he is. I really hope a Mountain West offer comes through for him, something like that level, because he deserves it. He's a talented football player. And I think people don't have a hard time realizing that there's a huge difference sometimes between prospects who maybe aren't as polished, but they've got elite speed, elite size, and just football players. And Jordan Happel is one of the best football players in the state, just like Ronnie Rust, another kid who just people see as kind of a little bit of a tweener. Those two are incredible, just pure go out and knock your head off football players.
Isaiah Mullen is one other kid we have to throw in the mix. This offseason, I want you to watch what Isaiah does. Don Johnson has done an incredible job with those kids over at Madison. As young, they're all underclassmen. They're all coming back. But Isaiah is a kid that's going to blow up this offseason, and I think be an unquestioned D1 kid.
Isaiah Mullen has the best catch radius of any prospect on this list. I don't think there's any question. Maybe Samori Tori, because he's really improved in that area. But red zone threat, Isaiah Mullen is the best red zone threat in the state. He's 6'4", and if you throw a ball up, it's his. Mm-hmm. You watch his huddle film, and it's a number of fades to the corner. And, I mean, obviously it's his highlight film, so he's catching them all. But they didn't have to edit too much to find the ones where he was going up and getting it. He goes out and plucks it out of the air. He's a really talented red zone threat, needs to improve his blocking. He needs to buy into that, and it's something that he's capable of because he's so big, but right now he's not totally buying into that. I need to see more of that from him, and so will major programs. So until he starts doing all those little things, he's going to have a hard time pulling in big-time offers, but he's capable. It'll be interesting to see what kind of work he puts in.
Yeah, I think, once again, this offseason will be his test because he'll be able to go up against those other elites from other states as we travel, so it'll be fun.
Tight end, good year for tight ends. Quickly, Cameron McCormick committed to Oregon. He tore his ACL this year. He's at Summit in Bend, Oregon. He's the best tight end in the state as a prospect. Obviously, we didn't get a chance to see him. He won't make any all-league, any lists at all because he was hurt all year. But offers from Michigan, UCLA, most of the Pac-12. Really talented kid, really great athlete, has potential to be a star. 6'5", 225, and moves really, really well. one of the best athletes in the state, three-sport star. Really like Cam McCormick, and I don't think there's any doubt that he's the top tight end.
Love Cam. I mean, you can't say enough good things. I think he's got a incredibly bright future at Oregon. I mean, I think he's got potential to go far. I mean, be a potential All-American and do some things at the next level. I mean, that good. Sam Mon's another guy that we talked about quite a bit. He's got a couple D1 offers. Super talented. And sorry to go backwards, but the two guys I don't want to leave out,
sure.
Johnny Neville and Harrison Steiger. I mean, just as at least honorable mention kids.
The Wilsonville
duo, 6'4", legit 6'4", and they're going to win 90% of their one-on-one battles. I mean, those kids are both primetime. So as we progress into the offseason and the playoffs, we'll see exactly where they're at. But those are two other kids we're going to see a lot of this offseason.
Sure. It really is hard. It's hard to go through and not give the kids their proper due, because those are two guys that are there. I don't think they're quite the level Bradford Cota, Lowe, Samori Torrey, but they're there, and they're really talented kids. I agree with you on Sam from Oregon City, the tight end. I think I slept on him a little bit early when I first got here. I watched Trevon. I was so locked into Trevon that I didn't pay attention to this big kid with soft hands who runs good routes, who lights people up, who catches a ball over the middle and is going to get 4, 5, 6 more yards for sure because he's going to fall forward. Really like him. I think he's a Mountain West level prospect, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He's a very, very good football player. And if it weren't for Cam, there are a lot of years where Sam would be the top tight end in the state, and it might not be close. Those two are very, very talented.
Look for Luka Nixon, the junior out of Sherwood, 6'6", 230. Do some big things. He'll probably be my top-ranked tight end for that 2017 class. Really good-looking athlete. He's got a couple touchdowns late in the season, and we should see him do some things in the playoffs because Sherwood's going to be around for a little bit. They have a potential to make a run and potentially play in a state title game.
The other guy we got to mention, I mean, he's committed to Oregon State. John Bates out of Lebanon. I like John Bates. He's a really, really talented athlete. He's an incredible athlete. He won 2 state titles and finished second in another in track. Really, really gifted kid, 6'6", 210. I want to see him demand the ball more. I want to see him be more of a gamer. I love where he could be. I want him to gain. He needs to gain. Oregon State wants him to gain 30, 40 pounds to be ready. So he's got a number of years. There's a lot of potential there because he can run and he can leap. But I want him to be a guy. And when I watch him sometimes, he's an option in their offense. But with as big as he is and as potentially dominant as he could be, I really want to see him be a little more assertive.
Yeah, 6'6", 210, wherever he's at right now. I mean, that's one guy that Oregon State needs to turn into a dude. I mean, he has that type of potential. But going in the 5A Mid-Willamette Conference, it's once again, we've talked about a justification thing with regards to who are you playing against. So we'll see what they do, but it's nice to have a 6'6" body that can that's a good overall athlete.
Offensive line's really tough, and we'll do a disclaimer here. It's very, very hard to project a kid for sure, specifically at left guard, right guard, and center. This year we happen to be lucky enough that there is a really good center, talented center who makes the list. But we picked essentially 5 offensive linemen. And the reason, again, is there are a lot of guys who are tackles in high school that move inside in college. To project that is really dependent on the team, on the scheme. But I don't think there's any question about the left tackle on this team. Dawson Jaramillo, you've talked to me about him for over a year now. He's only a sophomore at Lake Oswego. He's rated the number 10 prospect in the entire country. He's going to have offers from basically anybody he wants. Right now, it seems like he likes Oregon quite a bit. I'd be surprised if Oregon didn't end up getting him. That being said, a lot of teams are going to make a push.
Yeah, it's just, we've talked about Dawson numerous times. It's incredibly that big with those type of feet and that athletic. I mean, you see him on the baseball field, you see him football. It's very rare. I haven't yet to see a kid with that type of ceiling, and when you're the number 1 or 2 lineman for your class in the country and the number 10 overall athlete, I think that speaks to what this kid's upside is. And we talked about his family, phenomenal family, just good folks, and he's gonna have an offer from everyone. So I'm excited for him. He couldn't happen to a better kid.
Pair of Central Catholic linemen make the list. 2016 tackle Toby Okafor, offers from Oregon State, Cal, Washington State, really talented kid. And then Travis McKay, another kid that I know a number of Pac-12 schools are taking a peek at. I don't think there's any doubt he's a Pac-12 player. That pair for Central Catholic, really, really talented.
Yeah, McKay, I think he's another guy that might just blow up. I mean, big time. We're talking half the Pac-12, mid-majors, the whole deal. So that's another guy. He can play defense. He was on the defensive side of the ball, showing off his overall athleticism. As big as he is, 6'6", 265, running around. I really like Travis. I think he's going to be a guy, coming up here. So I definitely agree with you there. There's a few other guys. Jackson Kirkland.
We're still naming the first team. We're getting there. Wes Lynn, Alex Forsyth, a guy that's been on the radar for a couple years now, finally getting his just due after, Central Catholic had a number of really good linemen last year, so they took the spotlight. And then Okafor was the up-and-comer because he was on that group with those 3 or 4 guys that all went to major colleges. Mm-hmm. Dawson Jaramillo is this, prodigy. Forsyth, to some extent, a 2017 guy, got lost in the shuffle. No more. He's a first-team all-prospect, all-state guy, and I'm really excited to see where he ends up because there's a lot of talent there, and he's a really good kid.
Yeah, I would probably have him ranked my number 1 O-lineman for 2017. I mean, it could be Travis McKay, but I've seen a lot of Alex from last offseason, and he's fundamentally sound, hard worker, and as of right now, I'd probably have to give him the nod as the top-ranked O-lineman in the state of Oregon for 2017. So, yeah, the kid's legit. He's going to have offers after this offseason, and well-deserved.
It's pretty rare to have a center that is going to be pretty good. Travis Spreen out of Jesuit makes the list at center, which is, again, very strange. But a really polished guy at his position, and what else can you say? He's gonna end up having opportunities.
Yeah, he played varsity football as a freshman at Jesuit. It's kind of like
ridiculous.
Braden Lindsey starting as a freshman at Tiger. When you're at a powerhouse and you go do that, it really speaks to who you are. So you got that, which he has at 6'4", 260, and his ability to play multiple spots. I think that is key. And he's another guy that's still young. They got 37 seniors over at Jesuit. So once these guys graduate, he's gonna be in the limelight even more. So expect to hear a lot about him.
2017 isn't done with just McKay and Forsyth. There's also Jackson Kirkland, who I know you jumped the gun on me a little bit, but you wanted to talk about him. 6'7", 305-pound offensive lineman at Jesuit, and Cody Shear, a kid at Sheldon who is visiting Oregon State this weekend. Both those guys, and that just shows how deep this offensive line is. Jackson Kirkland's 6'7", 300 pounds. Cody Shear's visiting Oregon State, and they don't make an all-prospect, all-state first team. Really good year for offensive linemen.
Yeah, Cody, I'm glad you brought him up. I mean, he's a dude. They got a lot of juniors over at Sheldon. He's kind of the leader on that line, and he's got a couple of years left. And once again, I can't say enough good things about Marty and Lane Johnson and kind of just how they're able to structure that program over there. And Cody he earned actually, they don't have it published, but he's a first-team All-League kid, obviously. And, he will be another guy that we hear a lot about, especially in the playoffs this year, because we're gonna talk about Herbert and all the dudes, but there's limited seniors on that roster. There's a ton of juniors on that Irish roster. 6'7", 305 with Jackson Kirkland. I mean, that speaks to what every D1 program wants, right? I mean, it's about what can you do with it? What can you make of that individual that's 6'7"? Where's his ceiling at? Is he maxed out right now, or is he halfway there? And that's what those guys will have to determine. But you definitely can't teach that size.
Also, real quick, Mountain View, Riley Straley, really talented. He's got some time. We'll have to figure out exactly what he is and what he develops into. But the projection is high if he puts it all together.
Yeah.
A guy certainly worth mentioning. We're almost done with the offense. I want to do a kicker, and I want to do a kicker because there's so obviously one kicker that's just a star, and he's going to end up playing baseball. Out of Sherwood, Adley Rushman.
Yes, correct.
God, I almost said his name wrong. Adley Rushman makes 40-yarders in games, legitimately, and kicks the ball on kickoffs out of the back of the end zone. Incredible talent. I think in terms of gap between first player and second player, there might not be a bigger gap than at kicker because he's legit. I mean, he's incredible.
He kicks 40-yard field goals with ease.
With ease, yeah.
With ease. I mean, he is a Division I kicker, but Division I baseball player, so he's going to do that. But I thought you were going to say Nemec from West Lynn.
Camden Nemec out of West Lynn. Arguably the coolest kid in the history of the world. We're actually not related, but I tease him that he's my little brother. The kicker out of West Lynn's last name is Nemec, but we're not related.
Yeah.
No, that would have been great. We could have put him on there. We should honorable mention him just so a Nemec can get some cred. Flipping to the defensive side of the ball, I'll let you take it on the defensive line, but Marlon Tuipulotu is a guy that I want to talk about right away. Got an offer from Oregon this week, has an offer from Oregon State. Incredibly talented young man, defensive tackle. They're rare in Oregon, but I know you have a comparison for him that should excite some Oregon and Oregon State fans.
Well, watch his film, his sophomore film, and what he does to seniors, guys that are a couple of years, 2-3 years older than him. I mean, this individual for a young kid absolutely destroys everyone that he's going against. He requires a consistent double team if you just want to contain him, and usually that's not enough. So this guy, if we're talking to Dominican Sue, this is, in my opinion, one of the closest things that we will potentially see. Obviously, that's a bold statement.
Sure.
But this kid is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And Oregon, great move on Oregon's part. I think they got a good shot. But once again, we're going to see a ton of people come in on him. He's one of the top D linemen in the country, no doubt, no questions. I mean, watch his film; it speaks for itself.
Yeah, he's rated by 24/7 Sports as the number 6 defensive tackle in the country. That's really rare in the state of Oregon. Those guys come out of the South a lot. They come out of California, Texas. They don't often come out of the Northwest. So it's exciting to see a kid like that come out. Jacob Kaiser was hurt a little bit this year, but committed to Washington. He's a tight. He could easily have been our tight end. I just put him on the defensive side of the ball because I think he's an animal, and I think he's an animal on the defense side of the ball.
I ranked Kaiser. You saw where I had him on our top 25, and I had him ahead of a lot of the top kids. I had him at number 3 overall. I think Kaiser's a freak. I mean, super talented. I think he'll be an all Pac-12 guy. 6'5", 240, and runs like a deer. He was running just under a 4.7 at our combines. So, I mean, he is a guy that I think is going to have a very, very successful collegiate career. Unfortunately, he was hurt this year, and I just think Jake's got a big ceiling.
Osigizua out of David Douglas, committed to UCLA, had offers from all over the place. Not only is he a great defensive lineman, knows how to use his hands really well, knows how to control his body, has great balance because he's a stud wrestler. He's probably the best defensive lineman on this list.
Yeah, I mean, I got a theory with kind of babies of the family, and with his brother being as talented as he was, learning from him and coming up and competing and just growing up in that environment, I think I would agree with you. I mean, he's pretty unreal. I think he's going to do really well at UCLA. It's interesting just at David Douglas, he was Player of the Year as a junior and had a really good senior campaign, but kind of went under the radar a little bit just because of David Douglas and
where he
so
played, and that happens so often, and that's what's so hard about these lists is there are a number of guys at Jesuit that get a lot of attention. There are a number of guys at Central Catholic that get a lot of attention that are all state players, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're the top prospects, and sometimes it means talking to Roosevelt, talking to Franklin, talking to the Medford schools, talking to the Eugene schools, and finding that kid, and we'll get down the list, our number 1 athlete, is a kid that I'm sure 90% of the state has no idea who he is, and he's a star. Oregon State's already on him, and he's a sophomore. So it's tough to build these lists. It's tough to pay attention to who exactly is going to emerge, but Osigizua undoubtedly the best defensive lineman in the state.
Coyote Rufai.
Yeah.
We have to mention him.
Yep, he's on there.
He's got a couple D1 offers. He's going to have, I think, many more. I'm sure you would agree.
Yep.
Just I wanted to make sure we reference him.
He's on the list. Yeah, he made the first team.
Yeah, he's killing it. So he's a lot of guys. You're going to see guys on the sidelines these next couple of weeks for him specifically. I think there's a couple schools really close to pulling the trigger there. So a big fan of Coyote.
He's going to add a couple offers, I think, in the next 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be stunned if he didn't add 1 or 2. It seems like there's a couple schools that are ready to go. An honorable mention guy, we have to do it. C.J. Davis from Franklin, only a sophomore, really talented. You know quite a bit more about him than I do. C.J. Davis.
I mean, this kid, once again, check his film out, but this is a guy that potentially will be the top lineman in Oregon and the Northwest coming up here in the next couple of years. He's only a sophomore, about 6'3", 270, but incredibly quick off the ball. Much like Marlon, requires a consistent double team if you want to contain him. And I think he will be a player of the year, PIL player of the year for the next couple seasons. And another guy that's unquestioned D1 talent. If you listen to what the other coaches say in the PIL, one of the first things they'll say the first thing they'll say when you're playing Franklin is, what are you going to do to stop CJ? I mean, because that's your. If you're not containing him, he's going to disrupt everything.
Triple team him and run the other way.
Yeah.
Linebacker is the deepest position in this state right now. I put 5 guys on the first team, and I don't know how many teams run 5 linebackers on an actual field, but we had to, because I think you could argue that 5 of the top 15 prospects in the state come from that linebacker position. So it's impossible to leave off 5 guys who are all Pac-12 players. That list obviously starts with Lamar Winston, a U.S. Army All-American nominee, a very, very talented guy, the number 1 rated or number 2 rated, depending on who you talk to, player in the country or player in the state for the class of 2016, the number 10 athlete in the country according to Rivals. Lamar Winston's a really talented football player.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, once again, another kid that you can't teach what he possesses. I mean, his intangibles are pretty ridiculous. You watch him on court, his overall athleticism, what he did last year during the playoffs. I mean, he is a kid that I think Oregon, they see a bright future based on what they can do with him, his overall athleticism. So, I mean, you can't. He had offers from every Pac-12 school, Michigan, a host of others. So I think
USC,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he had a number of offers. Daniel Green, 2017. I've been waiting to talk about this kid this whole podcast. 2017 linebacker out of Madison. Twice this year, he had 30 tackles in a game. He's 6'3", 227 pounds. The Pac-12 is starting to go on this kid. He's the number 1 linebacker in the class of 2017. He's an absolute animal. I love him. He's got total linebacker mentality. He's a killer on the field. You'll see stud guys occasionally. This team starts losing, and they're not as productive. And that never happened for him. He continued to hit. He continued to blow up plays. He continued to scrape and do things the right way and make tackles and fill the lane, fill the hole, and blow guys up. I think he's the best pure linebacker in the state.
I would agree. I think, Daniel will eat you. He's just straight up legit 6'3", 225 and will run you down. I mean, he plays running back for them, got the bulk of the carries for Madison, and he comes with the thunder. I mean, when he hits you, you know it. And I think soon he's going to have a few Pac-12s, and once people start to know a little more about him, that's another kid that we will see be a high-profile national recruit.
Yeah, I definitely think there's no question that he's going to blow up. David Morris. Here's where David Morris came in. He could end up being a safety, 6'3", 200 pounds, moves well. But what I like him as a guy you put 20 to 30 more pounds on, and he plays kind of that Cam Chancellor role, where he's kind of a safety, kind of a linebacker, and he's like kind of a rover, and you let him do whatever. I know he visited Washington recently. Sherwood doesn't often have prospects. They're just a really, really good football program. David Morris is a stud.
One of my favorite players. I think we talked about him a little earlier, but just an incredible kid. He can play 5 or 6 different positions legitimately, offensively and defensively. And David's a guy that, you mark my words, in the next couple days, weeks, we're going to see schools potentially moving forward on him, and for good reason. You can't teach 6'3", 205 right now and will run and smack you and enjoy it. And he's just he killed it on the national scene last year when we were in Vegas. One of the top safeties. He was playing safety out there, and just speaks to what he can do either at backer or back as a free or strong safety.
Other 2 spots go to Kalen Hemphill out of Liberty. Has a gray shirt offer from Oregon State, but I think in terms of this year, I think he was the best senior linebacker, pure senior linebacker. Obviously, again, Lamar Winston was banged up a lot of the year, missed a few weeks, and it limited his production. I think Kalen Hemphill was the most productive senior linebacker in the state this year at 5A school. And then Malik Thurgill. Now, he's kind of more of a defense. I mean, he can play that defensive line, linebacker, tight end. He can play all over the field. But I really like Malik Thurgill and I think he has a lot of potential to blow up.
Yeah, Malik with his size at 6'3", 220, whether he plays outside backer, DN, whatever, I think that's another guy. Wait till this offseason, and we'll see a lot of people come in on Malik. He's just got all those things that you can't teach size and speed like he has. So Malik's another guy, especially in that high-profile program, that we'll see a lot of over the offseason, and he will be right up there with Daniel Green.
Couple of Central Catholic guys make the honorable mention list, Michael Abraham and then Elijah Winston, Lamar's little brother. Unpopular opinion alert, I think that Elijah Winston has a chance to be better than his brother.
Yeah.
And I think Lamar's a good football player, but I think Elijah Winston has a really good chance to be better than his brother.
And that's nothing against Lamar.
Right.
I mean, that's Lamar.
No knock on Lamar.
Yeah, Lamar is incredible talent. I mean, but Elijah, once again, the younger brother family, if you take statistics, they're typically they end up being the best of the bunch. So he's he looks the part, and he's got all of the intangibles to be special, much like his brother.
At cornerback, you want to go on a couple more linebackers?
I do real quickly.
Do
Makai Manaway out of South Medford. He plays some D-line, but 6'2", 245, 250. He got hurt earlier in the year, and he's a kid I really like. 4-point student. He's got a couple Big Sky offers, but I think he could jump up to that mid-major level. It sucked that he got hurt, but he definitely is such a good kid. Is important to recognize him. And then Kiave Dennis Lee. He's got a couple offers. Another kid out of Oregon City. Oregon City, in my opinion, is one of the most, maybe the most dangerous team that people, if you sleep on them, they're going to get you.
They're winning 2 games in the state playoffs,
Easy.
no question. They're an 11 seed.
Yeah. And they could play Central Catholic again, who they lost to by 1 in OT earlier in the year. But Kiave's got his younger brother, Daquan Dennis Lee at quarterback, and it just speaks to how talented they are athletically in that family. But those are 2 kids that I definitely feel deserve some recognition.
Cornerback, we didn't even pick an honorable mention because these 2 guys are so far and away the top 2 prospects, and it starts with Elijah Molden out of Westland. I think there's an argument that he's the best corner, most polished corner to come out of Oregon in decades. I think that he's arguably the top prospect in the state. If I had to take a guy now of any player in the state, I would take him. I think Dawson's potentially the best, but it's still a lot of potential there. Elijah guaranteed is not going to fail at the college level. He's got interest from Florida State, USC, Stanford, already offers from Oregon. Well, Stanford offered him too. Mm-hmm. Washington, arguably a top 5 corner in the country, might be a 5-star talent. Elijah Molden is an incredible football player.
Yeah, he could be. He could legitimately be the offensive and defensive player of the year in the state of Oregon. He's that special.
And you know what? He pretty much deserves to be. I mean, I could see an argument for Herbert certainly and Tawa, but there's no doubt that he's the TRL player of the year. People don't understand that, like, Tim Tawa does a wonderful job. And if it were just based on offense, it would be Tawa. But as good as Tawa is on offense, Elijah's that productive on defense. Oh, yeah, and he's the best running back, second best running back, arguably in the entire state. So he's an elite first-team all-league running back and state player of the year on the defensive side of the ball. He's got to be the TRL player of the year.
Yeah, 21 touchdowns, 12 yards a touch, carrying the ball. But when you lock down one side of the field every single
completely
week,
shut down,
and it's not a question. It's that guy. Ask Trevon.
Yeah,
I mean.
What that reference refers to, Elijah and Trevon went up against each other, and Elijah ended up getting hurt and didn't play the second half, but Trevon Bradford lit everybody up. Elijah covered him, and Trevon didn't have a catch in the first half. He had 100 yards receiving in the second when Elijah came out. Elijah can shut down anybody.
Nationally. I mean,
right.
At the national tournament 7-on-7, it was the top receivers, or some of the top receivers, completely locked down, didn't have a chance. Elijah shut it down. So as good as he is offensively, he will be a corner at the next level. And I think, once again, much like a Brady, I think he's going to play really early for Oregon.
Less than 15 guys, juniors in the country, made it to the opening this year. They took guys who are going to be seniors. Less than 15 juniors made it, and Elijah was one of them, to give you an idea how good he is. The other corner, Braden Lindsay out of Tigard, he's only a sophomore. Really, really talented. If it weren't for Elijah, you'd be talking about this guy as being the top corner prospect in about a decade. I think he's going to end up being a 4-star kid, and I think the Pac-12 is all going to go on him eventually.
Another guy that offensively, he's averaged over 30 yards a catch, 2 touchdowns a game last month. And then you take him defensively, as we referenced multiple times before, guarding the top receivers in the state as a freshman, quarterfinals, semifinals, and state title game last year. Yeah. And it's really, really unique. You don't see that. So Braden will be a big-time recruit. He's another guy that could potentially get a really early offer because he is that talented. And I would agree with you that both of those guys are definitely head and shoulders if we're talking about corners.
Safety, I think there are 3 names you have to talk about in this state. The first, obviously, being Brady Breeze, 4-star talent, U.S. Army All-American nominee, committed to Oregon. But the other 2, and I think there's some debate for that second safety spot, Newberg Jr., Anthony Adams, who could play a number of places, and Jordan Happel out of Jesuit. And I was waiting on Jordan. I see him more as a safety than a receiver. But is that how you see it? Do you see him as more of a safety or a receiver?
I see Happel as a safety.
Okay.
I mean, as good as he is at receiver, I just think at the next level he's that good.
Ball hawk.
He gets... I'm not sure if there's a guy that can go up and get it better than him. I like Samori as a receiver that can go up and get it.
And Mullen in the red zone, yeah.
And Mullen in the red zone. But Jordan has a unique ability to just go up, out jump, and out anticipate.
Sure.
I guess is how I would phrase that. Jordan Happel is in a class by himself, and I don't give it very long before these mid-majors at least start jumping on him. I mean, they need to. He's that good.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you had Breeze and Happel, you'd have Breeze is your prototypical headhunting safety, just blows people up. And he's good in coverage too, but he blows people up. And then you'd have Happel, who'd be your ball hawk. But Anthony Adams, really talented kid as well.
Brady, so real quickly, Brady, in my opinion, the best player in the state as of right now. And Anthony Adams, once again, one of my favorite kids. I can't say enough good things on and off the field. 4-sport varsity kid as a freshman, first-team All-League DB in the TRL as a sophomore.
Unreal.
Just the kid is awesome and plays the QB spot offensively because you want the ball in his hands every snap and let him do what he's going to do. But he will project as a slot, skill position kid, or primary or corner safety. I mean, he locked down. He had 2 passes completed on him in 10 games in Vegas last year at the national tourney. So him and Molden as our corners, it was over. David Morris was playing safety with Brady, and then Morris and Anthony Adams and Elijah Molden on the corners. One of the best secondaries ever, that they've produced. So Talanoa Hufanga, we have to.
Well, I've got him as we're getting there. We're getting there. Oh, the big reveal. The athlete, Crescent Valley sophomore, Talanoa Hufanga. Yeah, I said that right, I think. Talanoa Hufanga is a star, and people don't know about him, but I believe he was the starting he's a sophomore now. I believe he was the starting quarterback as a freshman, made it to state in multiple events in track and field as a freshman, and did well, made the finals in a couple of things. Talanoa Hufanga is going to end up being a Pac-12 player, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if he got an offer really early.
Yeah, TJ Hufanga, his brother, is a linebacker at Oregon State right now. The Beavers are very well aware of how he started as a freshman at quarterback at Crescent Valley, something incredibly rare. And like you said, I mean, plays varsity hoops, played the post position at 6 feet tall as a freshman, showing off his ability to jump and just his physical attributes as a 14, 15-year-old kid. So by the time he's grown as a high school senior, it's going to be pretty ridiculous. And I definitely feel like you could, especially with his brother already being there, see Oregon State going on him pretty early.
One other guy that deserves to be mentioned is Demetrius Douglas. I'm not sure where he's going to end up. I'm not sure if he's going to end up being a Big Sky player or exactly where he fits, but really talented. He's got it in the genes.
We talked about Demetrius the other night. I brought him up and said, hey, look, this is a guy that I feel really good about what he did last year, his ability to swivel his hips, his feet, his genes. He has incredible NFL genes, and just he's a very talented kid. Demetrius has been hurt for the first part of this year, so we didn't get to see him as much. But watch Demetrius Douglas. You're going to hear a ton about him over the remainder during the playoffs, and then this offseason he will be a featured kid with the other DBs that we just referenced, with Anthony Adams, David Morris, Elijah Molden. He's that other guy in the mix. Talent.
Well, that's it. The all-prospect, all-state Oregonian team. I think there's going to be some debate. I think we're still not totally sure on a couple of positions. I know D-line we're still talking about, O-line, potentially receiver, things getting played with a little bit. But appreciate the listen. We'll have another one soon. And as always, Jordan, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.